Hello Year 6 and welcome to today's English lesson. Now, over the last couple of days we've looked at William Shakespeare. So on Monday you did some research about him and found out some information. Tuesday you had a go at looking at a couple of his poems from some of his plays, and today we are going to start to look at one of his most famous plays, which is called Macbeth. So what we're going to do in a little bit, I'm going to read quite a big chunk of it to you. Now the actual real Macbeth play is very long, very difficult, and language that we're not familiar with. So I'm going to be reading a different version of it, like an updated modern retelling of it, shorter version of it. And we'll actually get about halfway through the story today, okay? So slightly longer video because I'm telling you this story. So in a minute we'll switch to my screen where you can see different bits of stuff. And yeah, after that, once we've read it, you're going to be doing a roll on the wall for Macbeth. And I will give you an example of how I would do it. I'm going to do it for a different character, but you're going to do it for Macbeth. Okay? So, let's get into the story of Macbeth. Macbeth. No. Macbeth. Isn't he Scottish? Macbeth. No. Macbeth. I'm going to be quiet now to start reading. Okay. So like I said, we are looking at the story of Macbeth. Now, Macbeth was a play that was written by Shakespeare hundreds of years ago, and like I said, it's a difficult one for us to read as a class because there's lots of difficult vocabulary, especially will be difficult like this. So I'm going to use this modern retelling of it. Okay, so it's by Andrew Matthews and illustrated by Toni, who's the guy who illustrated most of Roald Dahl's books. And yeah, this is the task that we're looking to do. So you're going to be doing a roll on the wall, and I'm going to show you an example of how to do that in a little bit. But things that I'm looking for you to include is tell me about the personality of Macbeth, tell me about important events in his life, his physical description, some of the dreams and goals that he has, some of his friends, some of his enemies, some of his likes and his dislikes. Now you can do this in two ways. You can either draw your little outline now and have a go at doing stuff as I'm reading, or you can listen to the full story first and then go back and do it. It's up to you. I don't mind. I'd probably do it where I listen to the full story first, but it's up to you. Plus, after I've read the story, I'll be quickly giving a little example of how I set it out and stuff. So it might be worth holding off to just until you've done that. But anyway, I feel we should get into the story, okay? So I'll be reading for a little bit. Okay, we're going to get about halfway through the story, but they've very much cut it down quite a bit, so it shouldn't take too long. Here we go. Macbeth. All day, the three witches waiting on the edge of the battlefield. Sorry, waited. I'll start again. I've messed up on the first sentence. Macbeth. All day, the three witches waited on the edge of the battlefield, hidden by mist and magic. They watched the Scottish army win a victory over the invaded forces of Norway. And after the fight was done, they lingered on, gloating over the moans of the dying. As thunder rolled overhead and rain lashed down, one of the witches raised her long hooked nose to the wind and sniffed like a dog taking a scent. "He will be here soon," she said. The second witch stroked the tuft of silvery hair that sprouted from her chin and grinned, showing her gums. "I hear the hooves of sisters," she said. The third witch held up a piece of rock crystal in front of her milky, blind eyes. Inside the crystal, something seemed to move. "I see him," she screeched. "He comes! Let the spell begin!" Two Scottish generals rode slowly away from the battlefield, their heads lowered against the driving rain. One was Macbeth, the Thane of Glamis, the bravest soldier in King Duncan's army. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had a warrior's face, broken-nosed and scarred from old fights. His companion and friend Banquo was younger and slimmer, with a mouth that was quick to smile, although he wasn't smiling now. Macbeth's dark eyes were distant as he recalled the details of the day's slaughter. A hard fight to protect an old, feeble king, he thought. If I ruled Scotland. His mind drifted off into a familiar daydream. He saw himself seated on the throne, with the golden crown of Scotland circling his brow. Suddenly his horse reared and whined, its eyes rolling in terror. Macbeth struggled to control the horse, and at that moment a bolt of lightning turned the air violent. In the eerie light, he saw 3 weird hags barring the way, their wild hair and ragged robes streaming like tattered flags in the wind. Macbeth's hand flew to his sword, but Banquo hissed out in an urgent warning. "No, my friend, I do not think swords can harm creatures like these." A small, cold fear entered Macbeth's heart, and he snarled to conceal it. "What do you want?" he demanded of the witches. "Stand aside." Moving as one, the witches raised their arms, pointed crooked fingers at Macbeth, and their voices grated like iron on stone. "All hail Macbeth, Thane of Glamis! All hail Macbeth, Thane of Cawdor! All hail Macbeth, who shall be king!" Macbeth gave a startled gasp. How had these withered crones come to read his secret thoughts? The witches turned their fingers to Banquo. "All hail Banquo!" they chanted. "Your children shall be kings!" And then they vanished, like a mist of breath on a mirror. "Were they ghosts?" Banquo whispered in amazement. "They were mad women, snorted Macbeth. "How can I be Thane of Cawdor? He is alive and well, and one of King Duncan's most trusted friends." "And how could my children be kings if you took the throne?" Banquo asked. The sound of hoofbeats made both men turn their heads. Quick pause. So Macbeth is quite high up in the army. This Thane of Cawdor is like a role, it's a position. And the witches have said that he's going to be it, but he's like, that can't be true because the Thane of Cawdor's alive, he's fine. Carrying on. The sound of hoofbeats made both men turn their heads. Out of the rain appeared a royal herald. He pulled his horse to a halt and lifted a hand in salute. "I bring great news," he announced. "The Thane of Cawdor has confessed to treason and has been executed. The king has given his title and lands to you, noble Macbeth. He has proclaimed you as his heir, after his sons Malcolm and Donalbain. All hail Macbeth, Thane of Glamis and of Cawdor." Macbeth's face turned deathly pale. So the witches told the truth, he thought. Only Duncan and his sons stand between me and the crown. My wife must know of this. I will write to her tonight. Macbeth was so deep in thought that he didn't notice the troubled look that Banquo gave him. The witches had left a scent of evil in the air, and Banquo seemed to smell it clinging to his friend. Lady Macbeth stood at the window of her bedchamber, gazing out at the clouds gathering above the turrets of Glamis Castle. In her right hand, she held the letter from her husband, and its words echoed through her mind. "Glamis, Cawdor, King, you could have them all," she whispered. "But I know you too well, my lord. You want greatness, but you shrink from what you must do to get it. If only..." There was a knock at the door. Lady Macbeth started and turned, her long black hair wisping against the green silk of her gown. "Come," she called. A servant entered. "A message from Lord Macbeth, my lady," he said. "He bids you prepare a royal banquet, for the king will stay at Glamis tomorrow night." "What?" Lady Macbeth gasped in amazement. "Are you mad?" She quickly recovered herself. "Go and tell the other servants to make ready for the king," she commanded. Quick pause. So this is Macbeth's wife, and she's just found out that Macbeth has become the Thane of Cawdor, and she's saying he could be Thane of Cawdor, he could be the king. And then they've just found out that the king is actually coming to their house, to their castle, that night. Carrying on. When she was alone again, Lady Macbeth opened the window, and a blast of cold air caught her hair and swirled it about her face. "Fate leads Duncan to Glamis," she murmured. "Come to me, powers of darkness, fill me with cruelty. So I might teach my husband to be ruthless. A low growl of thunder answered her. Macbeth rode ahead of the king's party and arrived at Glamis just after sunrise. When his wife greeted him, he noticed a hard, determined look in her eyes. "The king sleeps here tonight," he said. "Is his room ready?" "All is ready for Duncan's last night on earth," said Lady Macbeth. "What do you mean?" Macbeth asked. Lady Macbeth moved closer and spoke in a low voice. "I guessed the thoughts that lay behind your letter," she said. "Duncan is old and weak. His sons are not fit to rule. But you are. Kill the king while he sleeps and let Malcolm and Dunblane bear the blame." Macbeth was astonished. First the witches, and now his wife had seen his innermost thoughts. Some strange force seemed to have taken control of his life, and he fought against it. "I will never commit murder and treason," he declared. "I will put a sleeping potion in a jug of wine and send it to the guards at the king's door," Lady Macbeth said quickly. "They will sleep like babes. It will be easy for you to slip into Duncan's room." "No, I cannot," Macbeth groaned. Lady Macbeth's face twisted into a sneer. "This is your real chance to be king," she said. "Are you too cowardly to take it?" "I am no coward," snapped Macbeth. "Then prove it," Lady Macbeth hissed. "Kill the old man and take the throne." Once more, the strange force moved through Macbeth, flowing into him from his wife until he was unable to resist. "All hail Macbeth, who shall be king," he thought, and he could almost feel the crown upon his head. And we're going to stop there reading the text. We will carry on that probably tomorrow, maybe a little bit more next week. So, your task then, as we go back to here, is to do the roll on the wall. So you're going to do it for Macbeth, and you're going to be thinking about his personality, important events that have happened to him, his physical description, what does he look like, his occupation, his dreams and goals, his friends, his enemies, and his likes and his dislikes. Now I'm going to do that for Lady Macbeth, okay? And then you can use some of my ideas for that. Now I know this has been quite a long video, it's already been like 12 minutes or something. So if you want to take a quick pause now, that's absolutely fine before you carry on to see how I'd do this. And then we'll go for about another 5 minutes. Okay? Now let's go to my hand. Okay, so roll on the wall. So I'm going to be doing it for Lady Macbeth. You are going to be doing it for Macbeth, okay? So this is Lady Macbeth's, who is Macbeth's wife. So firstly, don't spend forever doing a really detailed outline. It's just something really, really simple, okay? So I've got my head, I've got my body, and then she's probably wearing a bit of a dress for mine. Okay, it's not an art lesson, so don't worry too much about doing something incredibly great. But make it fill up most of the room. Realised I've given them like strange hands. But anyway, carrying on. So, first thing it says is to talk about personality. So in the story, Lady Macbeth, she seems pretty ruthless, I think. She's she wants the king dead, okay? Ruthless, she's determined. She seems quite heartless, really. And selfish. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute. What was it? Selfish. Then, important events in her life. So she's obviously at some point married Macbeth. And at this point in the story, we don't really know anything else about her. Physical description. So in the text, there is a bit where it describes her. I'm just finding that bit now. And there is a bit where it describes Macbeth as well, okay? So she has long black hair. A green silk gown. Okay. Then I need to describe her occupation. So I don't know, she is just a wife of Macbeth. She lives in, what was the castle called? Let me find it. Glamis Castle. She dreams, I guess her big dreams of being queen. Because she's desperate for her husband to become king. Once Duncan dead. King Duncan dead. Who are friends and enemies? Well, at this point, we're not really sure. She probably seems... I wouldn't suspect that she has many friends, but she certainly wants King Duncan dead. Considers him an enemy. Considers him old and frail. And then I could go on to describe some more about her. Now, that's just me. I've only been writing for like 3 minutes. I want you to spend probably only like 10 minutes, so not too much longer, doing your 1-4 Macbeth, okay? So, very quick basic outline, and then you're looking at the different things. Right, quickly back to my face. And that in a nutshell is your English lesson for today. So make sure, if you want to listen to the story again, then flip back and listen to it. Make sure you get those roll on the walls done with lots of information about Macbeth. The more the better. Okay, like I said, I spent just 3 minutes on mine, and I did manage to get quite a lot down. You're spending about 10. So you should be able to get quite a lot about Macbeth onto this roll on the wall. And then tomorrow, we'll be continuing to look at this story, okay? The end goal is that you're going to do almost like a rewriting of the story, but changing bits. Okay, Year 6, well done. I'm looking forward to seeing your work, and I will see you in the next exciting, enchanting, enthralling English lesson. Some good alliteration there, wasn't there? Goodbye.